Hi guys! So today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I was thinking with the whole pandemic that's going on and the lockdown and just everything that's happening in the world right now, well, a little bit of backstory. I remember when the pandemic first hit, I was stuck at home just like everybody else. Everything was so uncertain. And I was working on book 3 and I started looking into other ways to make an income from home so I could concentrate more fully on my writing and make my own hours and things like that. I don't think I did a specific search for this, but I happened upon Cathrin Manning's YouTube channel and specifically her video, How to Start a YouTube Channel in 2020. It pretty much changed my life. I mean, I was terrified of being on the camera, which is why I'm pretty sure I didn't search out for this topic. But she talked about how you can actually make money with a YouTube channel, supplement your income, and I just started thinking, you know, how awesome would that be? But there was the whole being terrified of being on camera thing, which is a whole other story about why that happened. It was like over 20 years that I've been terrified of being on camera. And her channel, and her specifically as a person, changed that for me. I couldn't get enough of her videos. She had a video about how to get over being afraid of being on camera. One tip she gave was to record yourself when you're not planning on uploading the video or showing anyone the video. And I thought that was pretty brilliant. So I took the plunge. I got a new camera. I already had lighting from when I was making short films. And I did what she suggested. I started recording myself on camera. I started thinking how I would like to be able to make that difference in someone else's life, in a fellow writer's life. Today's video is how to write your first book during the lockdown. There's no foolproof way. I'm not on here to make some 100% guarantee, but even before the lockdown, I went through these steps myself when I was writing books 1 and 2 of the Toby Garrison Chronicles. And now it just seems more important than ever for people to be able to access their creativity, because writing is an escape for me, and maybe it can be an escape for other people as well. So that's what this video is about. So my first question to you is this: have you been wanting to write a book but you just haven't had time? Or maybe you've been wanting to write a book but you don't know where to start? Or maybe it's a combination of those two things. First of all, the current lockdown has taken care of the first item on the list, where you don't have time. Some of us, all we have right now is time. The second item, not knowing where to start, that's what I want to do for you today. So like I said, I've written 2 books, both before the pandemic started sweeping through the entire world, and I've been working on book number 3 for a little while now. I started working on it before the pandemic. I continued working on it when the pandemic first started, and I'm still working on it now. I'm the first person to admit that writing can be hard. I think the hardest part is getting started. And that's what I want to help you with. Now, if you're anything like me, I wanted to know the logical steps of how to do it. That's what we're going to be discussing in this video. And yes, I did say discussing. I want you guys to feel free to comment below. Let me know any questions you might have. I am not an expert by any means, but I have been down the road a couple of times. I'm still learning each and every time, but my hope is that some of you will maybe be able to learn from my mistakes. So on with those logical first steps. First, prep work. It's just to help with your focus and with your process. So number 1, to schedule or not to schedule. There's different kinds of writers out there. For example, are you a morning writer, an evening writer, a midday writer? And it's a forever changing process as well. 10 years from now, you might not be the same writer that you are today. For example, I used to love writing at night. Over the years, I've become more of a morning writer. Doesn't mean that that's going to be the only time you write. It just means that that's when you feel the most productive and the most imaginative. It's when the ideas are really flowing, when you're most passionate about your writing. But then there's other questions to figure out as well. You have to learn about yourself. And like I said, it is an ongoing process because we change. As human beings, we change. It's natural. Do you operate better with a strict schedule? When are you going to sit down to write? How long are you going to write? How many words do you want to write during that time frame? When are you going to take your lunch and breaks? Me personally, I don't work well like that. The time frame, yes, I have a time when I sit down to write. But NaNoWriMo reminded me I can't work well with the word count visible at all times. I need to just write, and then at the end of the night I check to see how many words I wrote. If I have the word count up there in the corner staring me in the face, I don't freeze, but I'm not nearly as productive as I am when it's not staring me in the face. It could be that you fall somewhere in between, where you want to check throughout the day what your word count is. Every person is different. That's why you can't go by me or any other writer out there. You have to figure out your own personal driving force. What gets you writing, what keeps you from writing, and what gets your creative juices flowing. You need to find those sweet spots, those things that help you with your writing. So yes, you will be returning to this step from time to time, and you have to try it out different times. You have to experiment a little bit, especially if you haven't written before, or if you haven't seriously written before, then you're going to have to try different things out and see what works for you. That might take a while, but it doesn't mean you can't write in the meantime. Step one is basically an ongoing step where you figure out what works best for you and you make the changes accordingly. Second thing is communicate. Communicate with your family, your loved ones, your friends, your roommates, whoever you are in regular contact with. Communicate with them. Let them know you're working on a project or you're working on a passion project, and that you're not going to be available all the time. And if they're going to need your help with something, to maybe give you a little bit of notice, like a day or two or something like that, so that you can schedule your time accordingly. And then stick with that. So I'm just working on the editing here, and I wanted to just pop on really quick to clarify something. I'm not talking about emergency situations here. I'm talking about the errands or going out for lunch. Things that could be done on a day when you're not writing. That's all I mean. There's times when I'm writing, my phone gets put on silent and I put a screen down on the desk. And people, if they call me or text me and they don't get a response right away, the people who know me know that I'm probably writing. The people who don't, find out. You're not going to be available 24/7. And the people who love you will understand that. Especially if they know you're working on a passion project, something that you've always wanted to do. So just communicate with them. Don't expect them to just know and understand, oh, where'd she go? She dropped off the face of the earth? What's going on? Let them know. Communicate. Third one, this is one of my favorite parts, is wardrobe. When I used to work outside the home, I would have to dress in business casual, or sometimes there was a uniform that had to be worn. And now, I can wear whatever I want. I always wear comfy clothes. Comfort is a big thing for me when I'm writing. But I have to have some kind of a change from sleep to personal to work. So, no, I don't wake up, start writing in the clothes that I slept in. My routine, usually, on a typical day, is I wake up in the morning, which is a good thing, right? It's a good start. I wake up in the morning, usually I wake up earlier in the summer. The spring, summer, and fall. Wintertime, I wake up a bit later. So right now, I usually wake up at about 8 or 9. So the first step when I get up in the morning, I change into PJs to work in. I love working in PJs. I have a pair of comfortable PJ bottoms that I got from Walmart for 10 bucks. I absolutely adore them. They're not too warm, they're soft and they're comfy, and I just love them. So I change into those when I first get up in the morning, but I also put on my robe. That is my coffee drinking robe. I think I mentioned that in another video. And I drink my morning coffee, I do my morning routine, feed the cats, reading time, scripture time, you know, I have my morning routine. And then I have a gray hoodie that I wear when I'm writing. So I try to always remember to switch from the robe to the hoodie. Doesn't always work. Sometimes I forget, sometimes I just start writing and then I'm like, oh wait, I'm wearing my robe, gotta change. And it just helps me separate my sleep time from my personal time from my work time. But I'm always wearing comfortable clothes. The rare occasion that I go out, especially this time of year in the winter, I'll change into a pair of jeans. But as soon as I come home, I change back into my work PJs. But it's whatever you're comfortable in. Everybody's different in this way as well. Some people, if they're going to be working, even if they're working from home, they need to dress the part. They need to wear slacks and a shirt or suit and tie, and that is fine. Do whatever works for you that gets you into that zone of concentrating on your writing, because it is work. As fun as it can be, it's still work. Okay, so now we're into location. Location, location, location. This is an important thing. You need to be able to concentrate. And yes, I'm in an office right now, but this office is only 3 or 4 months old. I think last August, I started converting it into an office. For books 1 and 2, I wrote from the comfort of my own bed, with pillows piled up behind me, fur babies surrounding me, and it was like a little piece of heaven. I had my laptop on my lap, and I just wrote. That was book 1. Then book 2, I was thankful that was my routine to write in bed, because I was off work due to a back injury. That was basically all I could do, was sit in bed and type. I was bedridden for a little while. Wasn't a serious back injury. I wasn't, hospitalized or anything like that, but it was a pinched nerve in my back. It was a vertebrae that in the x-ray it looked seriously like a little dinosaur just biting down on the nerve below it. So I was basically bedridden for almost 6 months. And I decided to put a positive spin on the injury and at least get book 2 done. After that, with book 3, I moved my base of operations to the dining room. Still, I had fur babies, like little fur baby beds all around me, and they all slept at my feet or on the scratching post behind me, and I loved it. The point was that it was a location at the back of the house, and I had, for the most part, privacy to work on my writing. So you need to find your place, a place where you can secrete yourself away and write during your most productive writing hour. Now we're into the actual writing part. So the first thing that you want to do is brainstorm ideas. Even if you already have an idea, you may come up with new ideas, ideas that you like more than your current idea, ideas that you can mesh into your current idea, flesh it out, and also you might come up with ideas for your next project. Because who says you can only write 1 book? Brainstorming ideas, it works to get your creative juices flowing. You're brainstorming subplots, you're brainstorming twists and turns, and it's fun. It's so fun to just think of different what if questions. What if this happened? What if that happened? Okay, so the next step is outline. And I'll be honest with you here, I used to hate outlining. I hated it. It was the part that I dreaded the most about writing, which usually meant that I skipped it. And then I happened upon K.M. Weiland's book, How to Outline Your Novel, and everything changed. I happened upon this book after I wrote book 1. For book 2, I went with K.M. Weiland's steps. It was so much easier. It was so much more fun, so much less stressful. And the book is so easy to read. And if you're not a speed reader, I'm not a speed reader. So if you want to get started on your book as soon as possible, then I would recommend the audiobook, How to Outline Your Novel, 4 hours and 25 minutes. Whenever I need to get my creative juices flowing, this is one of the things that I use, that I was telling you to find what works for you for getting yourself to write. This is one of the things for me. I read the physical book, and it was the first time I had ever encountered a how-to book that was a page turner. I can remember reading it and my eyes were grainy at the end of the night, and I didn't want to put the book down. And then it came out in audiobook. I purchased that and I listened to it. It doesn't tell me how many times I've listened to it, I don't think, but I've listened to it so many times. And Sonia Field is the narrator, and she's just got one of those voices that you love to listen to. So I highly recommend that book. I love the way K.M. Weiland approaches outlining. It's more like taking the results of my brainstorming which are basically the bare bones of the story, and fleshing it out. So I write my outlines by hand. I find it accesses a different side of my brain, and I just write and write and write, and I write whatever comes to mind, or I try to. Sometimes my analytical self takes over, but I just try to write whatever comes to mind, and then I'll go back when I'm done and highlight the parts I'm going to use, but I don't cross out the other stuff because I might want to use that later. I might change my mind, or I might use it in another book, which has happened, or I might use it in another part of this book, or even it might just get my creative juices flowing. Sometimes I'll go back and look at it later and just to get more ideas if I have writer's block or something. So the next step you want to do is structure your plot points. And some people say that structuring squashes their creativity. They say the same thing about outlining. But what you're doing is you're mapping out the key plot points in your story. Structure is another thing that K.M. Weiland made easier for me with her How to Structure Your Novel book. And it also is available in audiobook. There's a shorter version where it covers broad strokes of structure, and that one is 1 hour and 12 minutes. And Structuring Your Novel by K.M. Weiland goes into more detail, and that one is 6 hours and 16 minutes. Still not a whole lot of time, especially if you're like me, where it would take longer than that to read it yourself. K.M. Weiland discusses how structure works for books. Spoiler alert, it's not nearly as strict for authors as it is for screenwriters. Speaking from personal experience. There's a lot of books on structure out there, but K.M. Weiland puts her own unique spin on things. She's got this enthralling way of pulling you in to a non-fiction book. It's just amazing. Just her way of explaining it is just so simple yet profound, because the way she explains it makes it seem doable. It makes you think, hey, you know what? I can do that. You're probably thinking structure is overrated and you're afraid it will make you feel trapped creatively, but it really doesn't. Structure is a very instinctual thing. So even non-writers who are reading your book will be able to, even if they can't put a name to it, they'll be like, okay, something's missing here. Something's not right. Something's not working for me. And the last thing you want is for someone to put your book down because it's not structured right. And you as an author will know it too. You'll sense that something's wrong. One of the worst things, and this happened to me with book 1, is getting, 3/4 of the way through your book and realizing you didn't foreshadow a certain reveal happening later in the book. And now you have to go back and set that up and then make everything else work with that setup. And I mean, you can do it, but it's so much easier to plan ahead. Think of it as a road map. You're going on a cross-country trip from East Coast to West Coast. You're planning each tourist destination you want to stop at. It's all planned out. You're planning to go to the Grand Canyon. Unless you're really strict about your trip, which I don't advise you to be really strict about your outline or your structure for your book. Just because you plan on going to the Grand Canyon does not mean you can't go to see the world's largest ball of string or the world's largest garden gnome. It does exist. Believe it or not, it does exist. What's his name? His name is Elwood. It does exist. My point is, there's still plenty of room for your creativity to blossom. You just need to plan ahead to make the best use of your time, that's all. It makes the writing process so much less stressful when you have a map. And it doesn't mean you can't take side trips. It doesn't mean you can't go off the beaten path and try four-wheeling down this dirt road. It doesn't mean that. What it does mean is when you go down that dirt road and realize that you hit a dead end, or even that you didn't, that it blossomed into something else, you still have a map that you can go back to that will get you to the end of the book. It doesn't hamper your creativity. It doesn't put you into a box. It helps you get from beginning to end without as much stress. And now for the final step, step number 8. Now you're ready to write your story. And my main advice here is just remember to have fun with it. Take those side trips. Go down that path on the four-wheeler and just have fun. Because if you don't have fun, you're going to give up before you get to the end of the book. You don't want to do that. I don't want you to do that. Because it's such a feeling of accomplishment to finish the book, even if you're writing it for yourself. If you don't want to publish it, that's fine, but like I said, writing can be an escape. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please like and subscribe down below. Give me a thumbs up. Comment, let me know any questions you might have, any advice you might have for any of the other viewers, any thoughts that you have about what we've discussed today, and most importantly, have a great week and stay happy, healthy, and safe. I'll see you next week.